All right, I don't know what time it is on your clock, but I know what I'm getting ready for. It is time for the Professional CISO podcast with David Malicoat.
Welcome, one and all, to the Professional CISO Show. I'm your host, David Malicoat. This show is an exploration of the topics necessary to transform the role of CISO into that of a professional. All right, gang, before we begin today, a huge reminder. So when this comes out next week, it will be tomorrow that CISO XC DFW will be on all day. If you haven't signed up yet and you qualify, so go to the website, cisoxc.com, go find out whether you qualify. You know, there's a little form that you have to put in, but we're recording there. And so we're going to have a morning session, afternoon session. Come on, stop by, see what's going on. Maybe we'll put you in the seat, talk to you a little bit, and give you give that conference vibe. But look forward to CISO XC over there. I think it's in Frisco over by the Star this year. But good folks over there, good content coming, and really encourage you to attend. Also, like, follow, share. Always going to say that every time. Want to make sure that you're continuing to get this great quality content. So hit that follow button on Spotify and Apple. Hit that subscribe on YouTube, maybe even the little bell to give you that reminder when we drop new content out there, which is happening multiple times a week these days. And then follow us on LinkedIn. And of course, if you like what you're hearing, share us with that friend and colleague. All right, so we're getting right to the content today. Please welcome Nathan Wright to the show. Nathan, great to have you, man.
Thanks for having me.
Love it. All right. So always like to start for people telling their story. And the best part of it is I like to go early. Like, is it single digit age, Nate? Is it, when did you first get the technology bug? And then was that cyber at that time? Maybe not. I know we're probably close to the same age, so probably a little earlier than that. When did cyber hit you? And then talk me through kind of your career arc to today.
Well, I was not an early adopter or someone who was interested in tech early on, beyond the gaming consoles, right, when I was a young boy. So it was something outside of what I was familiar with. It wasn't something that I was that interested in when I was young. I guess coming into the next phase of career, you and I, before the show, we discussed briefly, I was a Russian linguist for the government. And in that role, I was able to interact with technologies I had never seen before. And I had finished my degree in Russian literature and language, and I went to work the next day, and I put on my headphones, and I realized I already had the job that I wanted without the degree. And so now I've got the degree. What did I just spend all that time doing?
Right.
And so it was at that point that I really decided to pivot and look at what is the next expansion of my career. And IT was coming up pretty strong. Mm-hmm. So went back, got a computer science degree, and then pivoted into the technologies that we've been involved with thus far.
And so kind of talk me through from a perspective of jobs, let's say. So when did the IT come into the picture for you from your, like, what company were you at, let's say?
Well, sure. So I worked as a Russian linguist for the FBI. I began supporting from the tech squad at the FBI as well, moving around to a couple locations, ending up here in Dallas.
Okay.
So that's really where my introduction to some of the security aspects. When you work in a high security environment, you, even if are not directly involved with the security policies, you certainly get to execute the security policies and are affected by them. So it was a great introduction into a high security area, high security IT systems. And my role at that time was to maintain and run these systems that were a part of a digital collection system for the federal government.
Got it.
And it was super insightful. I got hands-on, dirty, technical. I've got the ability to train end users and explain the legalities around what we were doing. And so it was a real wonderful opportunity to wear multiple hats, to be able to have a broad understanding of the nuts to bolts execution of these very important critical national programs.
And so from a career journey perspective, you said today as the CISO of Textron.
I am.
Can you draw that path for me from that FBI contractor to today real quick?
Sure. So the at everyone's career, there are points in time where you need to decide whether or not you're going to pivot.
Right.
Mine happened to come when my role was going to be changing from a very hands-on technical role to one of password reset guy.
Oh.
I don't know if you have spent a lot of time resetting passwords. I was not interested in it. So it caused an opportunity for me to look for new employment. So at that point, we were here in the Dallas area. Textron, who have some brands such as Bell Helicopter here in the area, they had an opportunity to work and establish and build a highly classified set of IT systems in IT labs. And so for me, the high security area, the opportunity to expand technical growth and understanding and work with a company that I actually knew very little about, but appeared to have a lot of runway was rather appealing to me.
Mm-hmm. Love it. And so we're going to get to this. Maybe we'll interweave this already, but so that journey been mostly there with a few detours, right? Can you talk me through that a little bit?
Sure. So one of the things I love about the company I work at now is we are a rather large company, 35,000 employees. We're in 26 countries, and we have 6 different business segments.
All right.
For me, coming in, I was in a very niche area, highly classified, secure space, IT. And within about a year, we had a major challenge. The program that I was hired for was canceled. One of the benefits for working at a large company is that there are other opportunities.
Right.
And so from there, I was able to pivot out of IT into supply chain, where I managed a group of buyers as part of our integrated supply chain, which was a complete pivot.
Absolutely.
And I really was able to learn the way a manufacturing company operates. Everything's either bought, built, and all of that goes through a purchasing group. So I was buying major subsystems for the V-22 Osprey, for our H-1 Hueys, and for our commercial fleet as well. And after about a year or so in that type of a role, I was able to jump over into the physical security space, where I ran all of our physical security technologies, so badge and access control systems, IP cameras, and all of the regulations associated with being in the industrial security program. Was able to pivot from there. Again, you'll notice a theme, I think, with the pivot.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was able to pivot into engineering at one of our companies in Maryland. So there we build military drones and ground control stations, and I was able to lead a team of engineers to secure the products that we were putting in the hands of a warfighter. Something I was very proud of, thrilled to be doing.
Absolutely.
Really connected with the message and the mission of those products. And then a few years later, Bell called again, and it was IT this time. And there was an interest in bringing me over to lead the cybersecurity group for Bell Helicopter, a role that I was very happy to take on. It felt it was. When you think about cybersecurity, most often you're thinking about IT systems.
Right.
You don't often think about a product. You don't often think about these other auxiliary types of cybersecurity. So I felt like it was a real opportunity to grow into primetime cybersecurity space. Loved that role. Was there for several years, and then pivoted back into engineering at Bell, where we stood up the product cybersecurity group. And so again, focus on onboard systems, aircraft systems, not only the compliance components of that, but also for military and commercial security. So that's a fascinating space as well.
Absolutely.
You have aboard aircraft, they tend to assume that everything in the air with you is trusted. And here we were bringing new requirements that no, we are now an interconnected flying computer, not just a flying machine.
Right.
And with that comes all of the challenges around an IT interconnected cybersecurity world. So I felt very privileged to be able to stand up that group. And then a few years later, we got another phone call, and that came from our CFO of Textron, the parent company of Bell. And it was an opportunity for the CISO role. And again, thrilled to be considered for it, happy to take the opportunity. And I've been in the role now for a couple of years, and it's been a wild ride. I've really enjoyed it. And I have found the diverse background that I have has been an extreme asset
Right.
to understanding the business, understanding the complexities of this large organization, and it gives me the context to make better decisions, I hope.
One of the things that struck me was the supply chain tour that you did, where, holy smoke, I don't think there's many folks in the CISO seat that can go back and say, I worked on the supply chain. I understand it, because how many, how important, or how, what are the headlines look like recently around supply chain attacks. And so to have, that expertise, that feather in your cap to say, I've actually worked it. I've run a team to do it, and I understand it on a very different level, I would imagine.
Right.
Excellent. Go ahead, please.
I think the more diverse one's experiences can be, the better security professionals we are.
Okay, so now you begged a question that
Uh-oh.
stuck in my head,
All right.
which is good, but off script a little bit.
Cyber warfare isn't coming, it's already here, and AI is changing the battlefield. The 2025 Cyber Warfare Report from Armis uncovers how AI is being weaponized by nation-state actors, and how forward-thinking organizations are using AI to fight back. This isn't just a report, it's your playbook for cyber resiliency in a world where attacks strike faster than ever. Download your free copy now using the link in the description of this episode, or by visiting armis.com/cyberwarfare and stay one step ahead. Are you going to be at RSA Conference in San Francisco from April 28th to May 1st? Drop by and visit us at the North Hall booth N5457, where you can talk to our experts and win a prize, all while giving back to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Visit armis.com/RSAC2025 for more information.
So how should we, let's kind of put on our philosophical hat. It seems that typically when organizations are looking for a cybersecurity executive, they want kind of this standard pipeline kind of view. But what I'm hearing from you is it's been invaluable to you that you've had these wide variety of, so how do we battle that? How do we balance that? How do we re-educate? How do we encourage people to get varied backgrounds?
I worry sometimes about folks coming out of school saying cybersecurity is my chosen career profession, and only allowing themselves to be open to opportunities that have a cybersecurity fairy dust on it. In our roles, we have to make very rapid, business impactful decisions. How will you ever be effective if you truly don't understand the business that you operate in? We had a few opportunities to exercise some emergency response lately, and the ability to make a decision rapidly and understand the business impact and understand the goals of the organization to make that decision rapidly doesn't come from staying in a single lane. It comes from understanding and being open to pivots into spaces where you're getting opportunity, you're learning, you're growing, and you're getting a better baseline understanding for the true environment that you operate in. So I am one who very much is an advocate to, if you're in tech, it is okay to take a side street and learn something new that's outside of your direct tech, because then you'll understand the importance of contracts. You'll understand the importance of the supply chain. How do you interact most readily with individuals from a diverse set of backgrounds and diverse set of companies? One of my favorite things was visiting manufacturers of components that I did not understand at all. But learning how do they source their natural aerospace grade rubber from all over the planet? How do they do unit testing with each and every component that comes aboard an aircraft? What are the different mechanisms to assure quality? What are the processes that have to be put in place? It gives you a broader base of understanding to also bring to your new job. And every time I've made a leap from one siloed area to another, I always wish, I learned something new at my new job. I wish I had known it at my last job. or there's some wonderful things I learned in my last job. I cannot wait to show how they are applicable in my new job, even though they're different fields. And I think that is one of the true values from being open to the right opportunity at the right time.
What advice would you give to those that are developing, right? So maybe I'm a mid-level, maybe mid-early level, even later, to say, if I have that opportunity, but I'm shy about it because I'm afraid I'm going to get out of my lane. What is your advice to them?
There are individuals who, and I'm gonna look right at you, right at the camera. There are individuals who enter a profession wanting a certain role or wanting a certain title. And I think that's a really challenging starting place. What you need to look at is, in the contract between employer and employee, what are the things you need out of a job to be satisfied, to be happy, to be content? And for me, very early on, I was able to identify the three things that are important to me. One, I got to get paid. I've got a family. There are certain experiences I want them to have in life. I need to make sure I'm able to provide those. Two, I like a challenge. I'm not the run and maintain guy. I want to be able to identify a problem, to problem solve, to show that creativity, to execute that creativity, and identify a new solution. And the third thing, I really like building teams. I like mentoring. I like working with people. And so, David, I was able very early on to say, those are the three things that matter most to me. The title means nothing. The field is secondary. As long as I'm building what I think are my core needs from a job, I'll pursue it. And so it gave me a different mentality where I was willing to take these side paths, and has helped me always feel happy and content in my work, independent of a title.
Right. Love it. Okay. So we're going to go into a different topic now. Infrastructure and cybersecurity, right? So talking about kind of having the same goals, but they don't always act that way, right? Whether we're talking about the CIA triad that we all know so well, or ITIL, right? So a lot of times there's a lot of butting of heads, okay? So can you kind of define the problem just as it sits, that way for those that maybe hadn't been there or hadn't experienced it as much, and then kind of describe both sides of it? Like what is each side seeing? Because obviously with your experience, you've been on both sides. You've been on kind of all three sides. You've been on IT, you've been on the business side, as well as the cybersecurity side. So kind of talk us through the different perspectives there.
The IT is often seen as an enabling technology, something that facilitates the business and getting the job done quicker, and always being there as this support function. With that concept that you're enabling the business, you have to be always available. And that becomes one of the primary drivers from the way we design our infrastructure. We have redundancy. We want to make sure the systems are available when the people need it. I know at our company, there's been a great amount of progress to also identifying that data integrity is an important part. We have external auditors who come in and evaluate our financial systems. I always appreciate the oversight of the auditors in that space. And I think there's been a good journey of late to ensure the confidentiality of data. Right. Traditional IT systems tend to be built around a use case. And what I think is unique about cybersecurity is that we're coming in with a misuse case. So a use case around, well, if the user does this and this is the way the business is supposed to operate, and you're built on the system of trust around those components and those people who are actually executing the work. Cybersecurity comes in and says, hey, we also care about the availability. We also care about the data integrity, and we also are worried about the confidentiality of the data. It's just our starting point is a malicious insider. Our starting point is someone who wants to take specific malicious activity and how can they disrupt these wonderful systems that have been built and put in place. We all want the same things. We all want to make sure the business is facilitated. We all want to make sure that we are able to provide thought leadership into technologies that can help the business produce an outcome better, quicker, smarter, and faster.
Right.
When we bring in controls, when we bring in maybe some administrative overhead, it can be viewed as we're counter to the whole efforts of all of the IT systems. It's just a different use case, a different perspective to say, what are the malicious activities that could disrupt our ability to generate revenue? Cybersecurity's goal, from my perspective, is almost exclusively to secure the ability of a business to produce revenue.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And in the case of manufacturing, safety of life issues come in quite often. We have wastewater treatments, and we have big vats of chemicals, and you want to ensure that from a cybersecurity perspective, there isn't malicious activity that could threaten life. But otherwise, revenue protection is a primary driver for enterprise corporate cybersecurity.
So from your experience, what's some of the strategies and tactics that you've employed to help that? So I have kind of the arrow pointing, right, to say protect the revenue. Right. But like, what are some of because I always like to have folks have actionable things that come out of this. So great leaders, great stories. What are some of those things that you use to make sure that friction diminishes to some degree? It's never going to really go away, but at least, we can reduce it a little bit.
So first off, I always like to say that conflict is inevitable,
of course,
but contention is not. And so ensuring that you're very clear that we will have a discussion, we'll have differing opinions, we'll come at it from different perspectives, but one, we won't walk away with an ongoing sense of antagonism with contention.
No beef.
There's going to be no beef. There's going to be no beef. And I think second is it's an important skill that we talked about my early translation work. It's actually a skill, I think, that it derives from that same muscle where you learn how to translate. So in in the linguistic world, when you translate from one phrase, from one thought to another, good translations do not translate the words. Good translations translate the thoughts, the concepts, the idea, the emotion, the intent.
Yes.
And I think we've all read, instructions that come from overseas, and you can tell it was a word-for-word translation, and you have no idea what's being said.
What does the duck have to do with it?
And I think, yeah, it's like
I don't understand.
And so many times when you come into an area where there could be conflict or where you need to be compelling, technologists will go in and they will say the right words. Everything is accurate. Compliance people, we will say the accurate thing. But when our audience doesn't speak that language, it falls dead. You're not able to make a compelling statement. You're not able to build consensus because you aren't translating from cyberese into the language of your recipient. And that, for me, is an exercise in empathetic thought. What are they going to want to hear? What are they going to hear when I bring up this issue in this way? How will they hear it? How can I make sure they're getting the right impression? And I think that is a very important skill set, is to think through the translation layer to make sure you're bridging those gaps. So if you're going from cyberese to infrastructureese, from cyber to business to finance, that translation is exceptionally important.
And I think this is one of the things that we've talked about quite a bit on the show, is the CISO as a translator from cyberese to the business. And it's never too early to start, is what I'm hearing, because there's opportunity. There's opportunity up and down the chain. It doesn't start when you get the title or you're bucking for the seat. As a young analyst, you should probably be thinking about how your message is landing. Is that correct? Do you feel the same way?
Absolutely. Cybersecurity can often be viewed as the glue between things. We fill the space where no one's looking. And for us to be effective there, we have to really understand a diverse group of individuals, a diverse set of needs and goals, and really be able to help bridge that gap. There are many times where, specifically with some of the compliance and regulations, where as a prime contractor to the Department of Defense, we have many people internally who who are trying to make sure we've got the right supply chain in place, we've got the right manufacturing in place, we've got the right security, information security policies in place. And my role very often has been for us to succeed at protecting the revenue, protecting our information and our IP, and protecting the product that comes off of the manufacturing line. For me to succeed at that, I need a whole lot of people. And I've got to pull everyone in. And there is no too early phase for you to begin to exercise that muscle, to be able to begin that skill set, because we are always engaging with other functions, with other thoughts, and we need to be able to bridge that gap.
Okay, we're going to shift gears again. Let's do it. Because I want to get through, that's what I love about the show. I get to like pick people's brains over a wide variety. Let's talk about regulation, deregulation. We've been kind of this tipping point, obviously, since January 20th of 2025, new administration coming in. There's pros and cons, I think, to regulation and market forces that maybe deregulation on a company's cyber strategy. Not looking specifics for where you're sitting. I want, because I don't think that's the right thing to ask. I think it's more of what do you see? What kind of winds do you see blowing, or have you seen blow, and what do you see coming in the future? So, over the last 4 years, you've lived it, right? Again, broad strokes. What do we see kind of the pros and cons side, right? I think there's kind of a piece of art that we can put up on the wall and say, here's kind of the way it was. What did the last 4 years give us?
So I think investing in cybersecurity can be really challenging ROI.
Right.
Here's a return. Something that could have happened didn't happen. And prove it. So I think it's a very, very challenging thing to invest in security tools when the people who control the finances may not understand the risk or may not see it as fairly. Regulation, such as NIST 800-171 and the DFARS for the defense businesses, was a shortcut to having to make and build that case more fully. And so with regulation, you're able to say, I don't know if this makes sense, but here's the regulation.
Right.
We've got to stay compliant. We've got to use the regulation. And it has been a great tool and leverage to force dollars loose for things that are probably smart.
Right.
It helps establish what a true best practice is for an industry. And I think those are really great. I think where the role of deregulation is helpful for businesses to be able to make an assessment of their own risk and invest not where the paper document says you need to invest, but where you're able to identify and see that risk. So I think fledgling programs can really benefit from regulation. But once they have become mature, I think regulation begins to misshape where a security program can go, and maybe limits the ability of an organization to learn how to identify what the true risk is and address the true risk, as opposed to strictly a compliance risk.
So for those folks that are, again, I want the nuggets to come out.
Sure.
You said risk a couple different times in there.
Okay.
So from a risk practitioner, right? We talk about regulation. There's, the controls you have to put into place, all that good stuff. There's a interplay here that happens, right? With obviously risk management framework, all that good stuff. For those that are on the different scales between having no risk management framework implemented at their organization, whether, they like it or not, to somewhat quasi to, hey, we're actually pretty decent at it. Can you talk me through how that interplay works, what you should be doing at kind of each level to help have those organizations be able to drive toward making their own risk-making decisions? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's an evolution, a continuum on the journey.
Right.
And I don't know how many organizations have experienced it, but you start this phase that I call chaos, where maybe you have a lot of assets, you have a lot of IP, you have a lot of data, your controls maybe are not as well defined. You don't really know where all of your computers are, and you don't have the tool sets necessary to really manage it appropriately. If you're in that phase, don't worry about risk. That is not the conversation you should be having. It is learn your blocking and tackling, learn your basics. So you first establish, let's make sure we have our inventories. Let's make sure we are establishing standards for how we should implement security tool sets and capabilities on the workstations. And then your next phase then really comes into tactical management of your environment. You're able to bring that into place. You're able to comply with the regulations. You've got the tool sets. You're beginning to learn from the information you're getting from these new capabilities. There you are. You're managing. Maybe you've got your vulnerability management in place. You're patching. You're understanding the cycles for what it takes. I think when you get to that phase, I think that's really when you can begin to say, we have the muscles necessary to heavy lift everything. Let's really now use those same muscles to target our efforts so that we aren't trying to lift everything all at once. And that is a very dynamic process to say, what are the true risks to our organization? How do we measure it maybe? How do we build the case? What is compelling in our discussions about where we need to invest our time or our resources? How do we handle that? And I think it would be a misstep to think that you're going to start at that age in the evolution if you are earlier in your development. Just recognize there's a path and you just have to go through all the steps to get there.
I love what you said. I want to put some context. Is NIST 171 and or NIST CSF, depending on where you sit in the world, are those the frameworks that we want to kind of pin to say, get that early start before we start on the risk journey?
I think every company needs to look at their business,
of course,
and where they work. If you are a defense contractor, yes, you start at 171 as the basis, as the bottom rung.
This is your
for
base.
What you need to do. This is your This isn't an aspirational set of controls.
Definitely.
This is stakeholder. This is your buy-in.
Right. Table stakes, as we say.
Table stakes.
Yeah.
You've got to start there.
Right.
I think looking at other frameworks. So a good example would be if you're a manufacturer, there are a lot of OT, IT regulations and standards that you could bring into your environment. I think you've got to look there. If you produce a product that you put in the hands of a customer, there are a lot of security elements that should be brought in as a part of that. But it's different frameworks.
Right.
So it's not a one size fits everything. And again, once you learn how to do the basics, then you can think about what other frameworks fit for you.
Gotcha. Okay, so we're going to tap one more thing, and then we'll get into 10 questions. All right. So with the exception of a few side quests, you spent most of your career relatively at the same company.
Yeah.
Can you give the audience an idea of some of the advantages that may bring?
Sure.
I think we touched on a little bit, but I'd like to kind of dive a little deeper on that.
I am someone who, and maybe you're very similar. I get bored rather quickly. And maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, I don't know.
It's a double-edged sword.
It's a double-edged sword. And so for me, going into a company that had a lot of different types of opportunities has been the thing that's enabled me to stay. I've been with Textron coming up on 17 years. And in those 17 years, I've had 8 different roles. You get the sense that I've got a level of interest in something new pretty frequently. Right. So the advantages of being at a larger company, kind of from an individual contributor and being able to grow, is that there are opportunities to grow. Certain companies will have the flexibility to allow for you to change out of the lane that you're currently in. I think my career has been a good example of that. Yeah. I've also been able to work at several different types of businesses, different types of fields. Again, large companies can provide that. One of the challenges is you have to deliberately break out of the incestuous mindset and thoughts that can occur when you only are in a single company. I think that's exceptionally important. I think it also happens when people stay in the same function where you get, I don't know, group think, but it is going to be self-fulfilling and self-feeding as you go through and stay in a single lane. So for me, being able to jump lanes was the infusion of new thought that I needed to feel very much engaged, very much like I was bringing something new and learning something new. So I like those. I like being at the company I've been at. It's been an amazing opportunity, and even in my current role, I still see additional opportunities to grow, to learn, and to even still not be completely isolated to a security or IT function. It's a lot of flexibility.
Don't have to answer it if you don't want to.
All right.
You're at pretty high level at CISO, at Textron, like you said, 35,000 people. Is there anything that you're looking at beyond CISO, and maybe not at Textron, but is CISO it? Is it a chief risk officer? Are there, and I'm not saying you're anytime soon, but,
Yeah,
just grand scheme of things, or are there other things, in your interest that you may like to attempt?
Well, I think there's some common next steps for folks in a leadership role. And I think it is a CISO who understands broadly business, understands the complexities of how they operate. I think there's some areas where there's a natural next step. So I know it's very common. I'm not saying I've had these discussions, but what I'm saying, I know it's common that CISOs can be approached about a CIO role within an organization, within the audit function. Sometimes there's a line to the audit function from there. Larger companies will have a very robust audit capability, internal audit capability, as well as their way they interact with third parties. So those are some very natural next steps. And then based on the individual, their backgrounds, there are some additional next steps. So in an engineering group, clearly cybersecurity engineering has been one that I've really enjoyed and leveraged throughout my career.
Love it. All right. It is time for 10 questions.
I'm actually scared of this more than anything else.
It's okay. No, I tell people it's a Rorschach test with words, but there's nothing to be scared of.
I've had a rough week, and then you come at me with 10
questions. It'll be fun, actually. I would guarantee it's going to be fun.
Okay.
What's your favorite word?
Oh, my favorite word. I don't have a favorite word, but I'll come up with one real quick here.
Okay.
All right.
Least favorite word?
Can't. Hate the word can't.
Does that bring you back to a favorite word?
No.
Okay. We'll circle
come back around.
You're all right. What area of your work do you find most interesting?
Working with people.
What area of your work is the most challenging for you?
Working with people.
Not the first time I've had someone say
that. I bet so, yeah.
What's the sound and noise do you love?
My kids laughing. With each other.
Understood.
Yeah.
Sound or noise do you hate?
My silence. I hate silence because it means engagement isn't happening.
What's your favorite curse word?
Hui, which is a Russian swear word, and you might want to bleep that, but it's the F-bomb in Russian, and it's used for everything, and I absolutely love it.
Now I'm connecting some things there because I've heard that in other contexts. I didn't realize what it was.
Yeah,
fascinating. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt? And this one I say is cap off. It shouldn't be anything close to what you're doing. Like you just had, you want to go be a professional golfer, chef, whatever.
I like working with my hands. My spare time, I've got a 1968 Beetle, and I would very much enjoy a profession that allowed for me to work my hands at that point.
Love it. What profession would you not like to do?
I would really, really dislike. Oh, what profession would I really dislike? I would really dislike careers in politics. That would be very difficult. I know we work in a space that we have to balance and negotiate all the time. There are areas where there's some, I would feel disingenuous with some of the negotiations you have to make.
Totally agree. Now go back to the top. Did we get a favorite word?
Yes.
The answer, yes or yes?
The answer is yes.
Awesome. Love it. Finally, last question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear your God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You made a difference. You helped some people out.
Nate, appreciate your time today.
Thank
you so much for coming on. Well, obviously, we've covered a whole bunch. Loved the conversation. There's a couple nuggets in there that I'm going to pull out for sure for myself. I think the protect the revenue piece, I think, because we all kind of go back to the data aspect of things, but we really want to talk about protecting the business is protecting the revenue, and then that dynamic that we have to balance. That was huge. So I appreciate that contribution. Obviously, so much more than that, but that's the one I was like, I love that. That's amazing.
Appreciate it, David. Thanks for the time.
All right, gang. Colleagues and friends, I renew the call. It's time to professionalize the role of CISO. In the meantime, I wish you health, happiness, and success in your journey in becoming the professional CISO. Let's do this.
We're professionalizing the CISO role, so please subscribe to the Professional CISO podcast.